Okay, picture this. What if your credit card interest rate was suddenly capped at just 10%? It's a pretty wild new proposal that has a lot of consumers cheering, but it's also got the big banks sounding some serious alarms. So today, we're going to break down exactly what this means, who stands to win, who might lose, and whether any of this could actually become a reality.
All right, so first up, we're going to dig into the massive debt problem that even sparked this conversation. Then, we'll look at the actual 10% cap proposal and the argument for why it would be a huge relief for consumers. After that, we'll get into the other side, the potential economic fallout. We'll do a quick political reality check, and finally, we'll talk about the crucial balancing act at the very heart of this entire debate. So you might be asking, why is this even a conversation right now? Well, it all comes down to some really staggering numbers and the immense pressure of consumer debt that's building up in the economy. Get this, right now, the average interest rate on a credit card is over 20%, and what's really staggering is how fast that number has shot up. I mean, just back in 2021, the average was sitting around 14%. Some cards are even charging close to 30% now. That is a huge jump that's hitting millions of households and hitting them hard. And all of that leads to this. Americans are now holding a record $1.2 trillion in credit card debt. That's an all-time high, and it just shows you the massive scale of the financial burden we're talking about. It's really this number that has people searching for some kind of solution. Okay, so with that huge number in mind, let's dive into the seemingly simple idea that's been thrown out there to try and tackle this problem head-on. So here's the proposal, plain and simple. It's a temporary, one-year mandatory cap. For that year, no credit card company could charge more than 10% in interest. It's a really direct, pretty aggressive approach, and it's designed to give consumers immediate breathing room from those crazy high rates we just saw. All right, so let's look at the argument for this cap. Why are people saying this is so overdue? Well, supporters see it as a much-needed lifeline for everyday people who are really feeling the squeeze. And this quote really gets to the heart of it. Right now, there is no legal ceiling on what credit card companies can charge. I mean, think about it. Is the limit 25%, 50%, 75%? The point supporters are making is that without some kind of cap, there's nothing to stop these rates from climbing even higher and just forcing consumers to absorb all that pain.
Look, to put it really simply, a 10% cap would chop the average consumer's interest rate by more than half. For anyone carrying a balance, we're talking about real, significant savings in your pocket every single month.
Now, supporters also bring up a pretty provocative point. They're trying to get ahead of the bank's main argument by asking a tough question. If a lender can only turn a profit by charging someone a ridiculously high interest rate, well, maybe that person is just too risky to be taking on that debt in the first place. Okay, but that idea leads us right into the other side of this whole debate. The very powerful argument that this cap, even if it's well-intentioned, could set off a whole cascade of negative, unintended consequences. Wow, I mean, you really can't get a clearer warning than that. The CEO of JP Chase did not mince words, calling it a potential economic disaster. So what gives? Why would something that sounds like it's designed to help people be seen as so incredibly dangerous? Well, it all boils down to this really crucial trade-off. See, banks use higher interest rates to balance out the greater risk of lending to certain people. The higher the chance they might not get paid back. So if you suddenly cap that rate at 10%, lending to those people just isn't profitable anymore. So the promise of lower payments for some comes with the peril of, well, no credit at all for others. And this is how that could trigger a kind of chain reaction. First, the cap gets put in place. Then, banks realize they can't make money off their riskier customers anymore, so they just stop lending to them. And the end result? The very people who often need credit the most could suddenly find themselves completely cut off, just like that. And listen, this doesn't just stop with borrowers and banks. Think about it. If millions of people suddenly lose their access to credit, they stop spending as much. So less money is flowing to retailers, restaurants, travel companies, you name it. It could even have an impact on schools and local governments that depend on all that consumer spending. Okay, so we've heard the really passionate arguments on both sides. But let's get real for a second. What are the actual chances of this thing becoming law? Let's do a quick political reality check. This whole idea moved at lightning speed. It literally went from a social media post to a topic of debate for world leaders in Davos in just a couple of weeks. But here's the thing. Despite all that noise, Wall Street is basically betting against it, pricing in only a very slim chance of it ever passing Congress. And a huge reason for that skepticism? You guessed it, the threat of a massive legal fight.
The financial industry has made it crystal clear if Congress actually passes this, they will immediately sue to stop it. We're talking a long, drawn-out, expensive battle in the courts, which makes actually passing it in the first place even less likely.
So, as we start to wrap this up, you can see it really all comes down to this fundamental balancing act. We're trying to weigh two really important and maybe even conflicting goals: protection versus access.
So on the one side, you have the argument for the cap. It provides immediate financial relief, it puts a ceiling on those skyrocketing rates, and it helps reduce that record debt. But then on the other side, you've got these major concerns that it would shrink access to credit for a lot of people, squeeze bank profits, and cause those broader economic ripple effects we talked about.
And that leaves us with the big core question at the heart of all of this. Is protecting borrowers from these really high costs worth the very real risk of cutting them off from credit entirely? There really is no easy answer here, is there?